That'd be nice.
I'd like to call the Linn-Mar School Board meeting to order. Could you please determine a quorum?
Buckles.
Here.
Eisenberg.
Here.
Lawson.
Here.
Maury.
Here. Sorry.
Larson.
Here.
Walt. And Weaver.
Here.
Quorum is present at 5 o'clock.
Okay. Adoption of the agenda.
Yeah, motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, of course. Kira. Any questions, concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next, it's a public hearing. I am opening a public hearing regarding the potential financing of $29 million school infrastructure sales service use tax revenue bonds. Are there any questions? Any comments? Not seeing any. I am closing the public hearing. Next, we have audience communication. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the board? Okay, would you like to come up and would you please sign in for us? We'd appreciate that. And state your name. And as you're signing in, I have something to read to you. At this time, the board invites the public to speak on items related to the agenda or district. The board will receive and acknowledge comments, but will not engage in a dialogue with the speakers because of the set agenda for the meeting. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Remarks should not contain names or other identifying information about students, teachers, administrators, or other personnel. For additional information, you can contact, there's a policy that you can go and look at. And your name is?
Nick Dussel.
Okay, Nick.
Hi, Linn-Mar School Board. My name is Nick Dussel, as I just said. I reside at 164 West Williams. Thank you for allowing me to address the board. I'm a parent of a student and a husband of a teacher in the district, so I've had a view of this challenging year play out from a couple different points of view. I've also had many friends and children in the Linn-Mar district, but I wanted to take this opportunity to thank the school board, the teachers, and all the staff for their hard work and commitment to keeping our children and staff safe during the 2021 school year. I've heard conspiracy theory related comments accusing the board and district of having ulterior and or political motives when making decisions about COVID-19 throughout this past school year. The same small group of people have also decided to use their right to free speech to gather outside our elementary schools to voice their opinion. As a result, this group, in my opinion, has embarrassed themselves and just created confusion and division in our district. I wanted to let the board know that the vast majority of adults in this district appreciate the hard work the board, our teachers, and all the support staff have done this school year in making it through making tough decisions based solely on fact for our kids and our staff. We appreciate all the hard work that you've done. I think you guys have done a great job making the year very successful. So again, I just think it's important that all you here, thank you from the vast majority of the community, to you guys, to all the students, and to all the school staff. I think 2021 was very challenging, obviously, and you guys did a great job of making it very successful. So I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Scott Phones, and I live at 2231 Tamarack Circle. The last school board meeting, I was a little bit stunned at some of the commentary. And I half expected at some point a chiffon dress wearing Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind to come racing in here and force her way to the microphone and tell the board, I do declare this Linn-Mar School Board mask policy is an abomination. It is an abuse, and I cannot believe that you would make Rhett Butler and my daughter cloak her beautiful face in some Yankee-colored mask. That's a horrible plan. If I didn't know better, I'd swear to God that Thaddeus Stevens and that brain-damaged Charles Sumner were on this school board right here. Why, just talking about it is giving me the vapors. I think I may faint. Oh, Ashley, catch me. Ridiculous, right? Yeah, it was ridiculous. Over the last 15 months, we as a people have faced an unusual pandemic situation. And you as a school board, Superintendent Biscard, the rest of the staff, have had to make decisions. And you've had to make decisions facing, quite frankly, a chasm of information. And when you are looking at those kinds of situations, you have to make a choice. Do I choose to err on risk, or do I choose to err on safety? What I saw was a board and an administration which chose to err on safety. You did the right thing, and I know that I speak for a whole series of people that want to say thank you for your courage and for standing up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak before board? Okay.
My name is Kara Larson. I reside at 7075 York Avenue in Marion. I have been a Linn-Mar parent for 14 years, and in addition to that, I'm a 94 graduate and have lived in the district for 31 years. I currently have a 7th and 9th grader this upcoming school year. 6 years ago, give or take, I started coming to school board meetings because I wanted to understand more about how the schools made decisions, how things were discussed and voted on. I will admit I've slacked a bit in the last 2 years and haven't been to as many, but coming to these meetings, I've learned a lot in those years. I've also gotten to know many of the previous board and current board members. I know I would not agree with everyone on the board with some of the decisions they've made, but that's okay. Because I do know when you decide, you think of the students, the staff, and the families first. I've seen the back and forth discussions, how to accommodate for everyone. I know what's in your hearts and head. I would like to thank the school board for allowing the family choice model this year. With my kids being high risk, this was a great choice for them. My senior actually excelled more this last year at Linn-Mar with the online model. So I'm glad that you have decided to continue with that being a choice for parents and students. With that being said, even though they were home all year, they did have to go into the schools to pick up supplies, books, get their computers fixed, pictures taken, and take tests. I appreciate all that was done to make sure these kids felt safe coming into the school even for that little bit. I know the day after and probably days after the governor signed that schools could no longer mandate mask wearing were rough. Our kids, which unsure of what to do, were looking for support typically towards staff and teachers. Unfortunately, because a health issue was turned into a political issue, most staff did not know what they could or could not say to students. There's no one to blame for this as it happened overnight. I just want to thank the staff for their continued support that week as much as they could. The ones who continue to wear masks to support those kiddos who are still wearing them as well, especially at the elementary level. In closing, I want to thank the school board and the Linn-Mar staff for an amazing year during a very difficult time. I want to thank the in-school teachers, the online-only teachers, and the teachers that had to do both. It just proves to me that no matter what we are thrown, we can rely on our Linn-Mar district to make sure everyone is thought of.
Thank you.
All right. My name is Laura Robertson. I live at 628 White Ivy Place Northeast. I have 2 children who graduated from Linn-Mar. I'm starting my 20th year of teaching for the Linn-Mar district in the fall. I'm also a taxpayer in this district. I'm standing before you today to say thank you for the hard work and difficult decisions you have had to make during this past school year. I know that each and every one of you has family members or friends who are or were students or who work in the district. So those were the faces you thought of as you navigated this unprecedented year. Not one person can say that they envy you in the position you were placed in this year. You had to make many last-minute decisions that you knew wouldn't make everyone happy, but you did so with consultation from the Linn County Public Health Department, the Iowa Department of Public Health, the Iowa Department of Education, and the federal CDC, just to name a few. I'm positive you laid awake at night thinking of the individuals you knew were affected most by your decisions, the students and staff members. Thank you for putting out surveys to parents and staff members in order to find out what individuals needed in order to feel safe to return to school. Thank you for allowing families a choice in how they wanted their children educated this year. Thank you for giving teachers a choice in whether they would teach in person or virtually. Thank you for implementing all of the safety protocols this year in order to keep our students and staff safe. This was a difficult year, but we all made it through as a community. We definitely showed that we are Linn-Mar. I watched the last board meeting in which you were attacked for the decisions that you made, particularly about wearing masks. We can all agree that no one enjoys wearing them, but we also know that they are a way to protect our more vulnerable community members. This pandemic has taught us that it isn't about individuals, it's about the community as a whole. Mandating masks is no different than mandating the use of seatbelts or child safety seats. It's to protect the individual and the others around him or her. Being called a child abuser for requiring something that is meant to protect others was hurtful and out of line. I became a teacher because it has been my lifelong passion to help children reach their fullest potential. I know that the same is true of all others who are in the field of education. I told my students and their parents on the first day of school that I would do everything in my power to keep them safe, and I meant it. We all did. I also told my students that I love each and every one of them with or without a mask when masks were suddenly not allowed to be required. Bullying those wearing them or not wearing them was not tolerated. That was the same sentiment throughout my building as I'm sure it was for the others. I think this school year that began with a derecho amidst a global pandemic ended up being successful. There may have been bumps along the way, but with grace and understanding on the part of everyone involved, it made all of us, students, teachers, administrators, and all members of the Linn-Mar community stronger and more resilient. I look forward to next year and the ongoing support from all of you on the board. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, thank you so much for all your comments. Okay, we'll move on, first of all, to our health services update.
As they kind of get themselves adjusted, I'm not sure who's speaking right away. Just really pleased to have our school nurses here to kind of present to the school board kind of a summary of their experiences in this absolutely crazy year. Everybody had challenges this year, as we're all well aware, but I don't know that anybody had more of a challenge than our nurses and our health assistants. So really appreciate them taking the time out tonight to share kind of the summary of their experiences from the health office perspective. So I will hand it over to whichever one of you is going first.
We'll start by introducing ourselves. I'm Nancy Kleitch. I am the nurse at the High School Success Center in Compass.
And I'm Marilyn Calcara. I'm the nurse at Indian Creek, Glen Grove, and Wilkins.
Hi, I'm Cammie Martin, and I am the nurse at Boulder Peak and Excelsior.
I'm Kadeen Dunwald. I'm the nurse at Oak Ridge and Hazel Point.
And I'm Anna Strand. I'm the nurse at Bowman Woods, Westfield, and Novak.
And I'm Abby Reneker. I'm the nurse at Linn-Mar High School as well as Echo Hill Elementary. We'll kind of get this started off here. We're gonna, first of all, we would just there's a lot of things we did this year and we couldn't do it without kind of giving a thank you to everybody. Especially those that were right beside us and kind of battled the storm with us, and we're kind of, we had their back, they had our back, and they're a team right here along with us, so we want to kind of call them out by name. And that's our health assistants. At the high school, we have Susan Buchholz, Excelsior is Brenda Taylor, Oak Ridge is Karen Krogh, Boulder Peak is Ann Blazak. Hazel Point, Jenny Fredrickson. Bowman Woods, Eileen House. Echo Hill, Andrea Martin. Indian Creek, Stephanie Rosendale. Lynn Grove, Jen Young. Novak, Lori Swanson. Westfield, Jay Gator. And Wilkins, Annalisa Grant. Again, they battled the storm with us, and so definitely wanted to give them each individual shout out.
So we also wanted to thank other people that assisted us greatly in what we needed to do this year. It started last summer with Christy Hicks, who was our supervisor at that point, and she helped us get together the COVID-19 protocols, even as they were still being formulated by the various agencies. And kind of at some point, then Lisa Breitfelter became our supervisor. Both of them were great at helping us figure out as a district where we were going to go with our protocols for COVID-19. Also, our building administrators were awesome at supporting us and helping us implement that protocol. The protocol was a bit complex when something happened, so it required that a lot of people jump in and help put those things into place, and they were amazing. We also wanted to thank Superintendent Shannon Biscard and Associate Superintendent Nathan Weir for making the hard decisions. Sometimes the guidance was muddy, to say the least, and decisions had to be made. And we appreciate the leadership that they showed to decide what to do as a district and say, this is what our district is doing. We want to thank the school board meetings. I can say dittos to things that have been said already by audience members. We really appreciate all that you did to lead our district through a really difficult year. It's been a hard year for everyone. We also wanted to thank people at Linn County Public Health, Heather Meeder specifically, and Sadie Nolan and Diane Midcap, who were kind of our go-to people that we would call when we needed some guidance. Some of the situations were very plain and we knew what to do. Other times it was more complex. It was kind of like, okay, what do we do about this or that? And they were responsive and gave us great guidance on what to do as a school. And then we always put in there anyone we may have missed. There were tons of people who pulled together, and I agree with what Laura Robertson said, that we are Linn-Mar. And we saw teamwork that was awesome in our buildings. So, yeah, so we thank all those people that helped us do what we did this year.
So here are our statistics in the district of the positive COVID-19 cases. Elementary 93, intermediate and middle school 135. And also, so Excelsior was closed to virtual learning for 2 weeks, so that number would probably have been higher. Which we appreciate you guys closing Excelsior for that short amount of time. I think that saved a lot of positives. And then the high school, 145, a total of 373. Those are just numbers we were reported to. I know that there was a lot of positives that we didn't get, obviously, but parents did a great job letting us know, and we tried to reach out to those that not. Another statistic that isn't written down, but I think at the high school alone on our spreadsheet for contacts, we had over 1,000 parent contacts that kids were quarantined. So literally every kid that was called in sick at the high school, and I'm just speaking for the high school, we called, either us or our health assistant called to figure out if it was COVID or not COVID. So kids that had stomach aches, that had a chronic illness, we still called them to make sure it wasn't COVID. So a lot of phone calls, a lot of time spent with those numbers.
So even though it was a challenging year, we feel like it was a great year. We had a lot of really big wins. Not to toot our own horn, but I love these ladies. I might get emotional, but they are a fabulous team of healthcare providers, and we got through it with a few laughs and a few tears. But I wouldn't want to be working with any other team there. It's an amazing team. And that also includes our health assistants. I want to shout out to them again because they really do help us make all those parent phone calls, help us with every student who walks into the office. We want to say that we thought one of the biggest wins was cooperation and teamwork when we established the COVID-19 protocols with constantly changing guidelines. We feel that this teamwork helped us maintain consistency with the procedures across the district. And that's hard. We have 12 schools to think about. So trying to maintain the exact, use the exact same protocols across every school and follow through with every single case and use the same exact stuff every time. It was really, takes a lot of teamwork and collaboration. Team collaboration on carrying out all of those procedures also includes building secretaries, along with, again, our health secretaries, facilitators, teachers, principals, assistant principals, and all of us coming together to accomplish what needed to be done. And I think we all did that with great attitudes and stayed positive all year long. We did not have any COVID deaths or minimal hospitalizations among staff and students. We feel that is a huge win, considering there were some districts that were not so lucky. We do know, though, that we did lose some people that were very close to us, and it's difficult. Staff really worked together to ensure that social distancing and mask compliance would help to keep our positive cases down. We really appreciate everyone working together, and we think that the students did a great job using masks, and it just went off really smoothly that way. We also appreciate the push for early vaccinations of staff and students. We also appreciate the last summer, everyone was talking about what kind of PPE do we need as a district, and getting that organized and having that ready and available for the first day of school. That was amazing, and we appreciate that so much. We do believe that mask usage, as I said, went well, and I think that it played a huge role in slowing and preventing COVID-19, as well as some other communicable diseases. I think we get this newsletter as a nursing team that comes from the state, and there was, in this newsletter, there was only one death by flu this year in the pediatric population. So it's greatly reduced over previous years. So we think that all those were really big wins this year.
So some of our biggest challenges, we started last summer trying to figure out from CDC, Iowa Department of Public Health, Linn County Public Health. They didn't always agree on everything and would put out different protocols. So we had to, starting last summer, just kind of figure out where we wanted to be with the help of the administration. And when they changed guidelines, we did have to edit our documents. We had to edit the way we did things in our school. And the collaboration between all of us, we were on the phone with each other a lot. A lot of emails. I just went through, and I'm retiring, and I went through my emails, and I had to delete a lot of them. And there were sometimes there was maybe over 100 a day. Just going back and forth and saying, okay, this is my situation. What do you think you guys need? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Which guidelines are we going to use? So that was probably one of our biggest challenges. The COVID-19 fatigue within our community. We understood that. We were doing that on our own personal and at work. There was a lot of times where our health assistants and ourselves met with resistance, and it sometimes not always pleasant responses from people that we just had to maintain our civility, and then we'd get off and call each other. So, and that's what we had to do. The health needs were greater than the staff available. So sometimes when I had to close down an entire classroom, that's calling 22 sets of parents and trying to get a hold of them during the middle of the day. And so I would pull in principal, I'd pull in the facilitator, and they were always, the building secretaries, they were always wonderful. We split the list up, and everybody went to their offices and did it, and we got through it. We got through it. You want me to speak to that now, guys? Or? Sure, okay. All right. One thing that I think is a challenge to all of us who work with these wonderful women who are in my, I have 3 schools. I'm not at every school every day. So my health assistant is the one who takes the brunt of things, who makes some of the big decisions. Yes, if it's something that's really bad, she calls me, I'm right there. But they have to do all of that. And one of the things that we have been pushing for the last few years is to look at their pay scale. They don't make as much as just seeing in the board minutes what's being paid for swim instructors and the high school helping out in groundskeeping this summer. They don't even make that after 20-some years per hour. So we are just going to put a plug in that please take a look at that. They have a lot of responsibility. And my husband, when he worked and was a supervisor, would always say, man, we cannot get quality people. And I said, what are you paying them? And he would tell me, and I'd say, think this through. and it was, you know, the people just didn't want to stay because they weren't getting paid enough or didn't care about their job. So we did really want to just put in a plug for these guys. They've been my backbone. There's no way I could have done this year without them.
So concerning our extended Linn-Mar family, when we began preparing this presentation, many of us felt that our biggest successes was not having anyone, students or staff, pass away from COVID-19. Many districts across Iowa and the United States have not been as lucky as we have. Unfortunately, our extended Linn-Mar family has not gone untouched by COVID-19 deaths. We have students that have lost their parents. We have families that have lost grandparents, spouses, aunts, uncles, and friends. In our department, one of our health assistants lost her mother and her grandmother in less than a week. Last month, Marilyn lost her husband of 43 years, Tim Calcara. As we find ourselves blessed with our student and staff success this year, we also recognize the level of loss that so many of our families have experienced. Our thoughts will continue to be with all of them as they journey on to find their new normal. In closing, our planning for the 21-22 school year will depend on all of you. We appreciate that. Again, we can thank you for all the tough decisions you've made at every turn. Obviously, hoping the pandemic situation is going to be better and that the government guidelines are going to be there for us. But it's kind of scary going into summer, wondering what that's going to be. But we really, really appreciate you, like all of the comments from our friends and family back here in the back rows. What you received last meeting was not what you deserved. We are all here behind all of you all the way, and we appreciate your support. I do want to acknowledge Anna, who's retiring after 34 years with us. So she and her health assistant at Novak, Lori Swanson, just completed 27 years. So together we're losing 61 years of experience this year. So it's going to be hard to replace.
For sure.
She's going to replace me.
I'll do my best. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions?
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you for everything. If anyone did anything this year that was at the top of the list, it was you guys. I mean, you kept everybody safe and you kept everybody knowing what they should be doing. And I don't think we can thank you enough for that. So thank you very much for everything that you guys did as a team. I love to hear about the collaboration. I know it's hard when you're in different buildings and you each have multiple buildings. So I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome.
In addition to recognizing Anna, I think we would like to recognize you for your, truly going above and beyond this year to do things that never expected we'd have to do. So for making those phone calls to hundreds to thousands of people throughout the year, to dealing with challenges that you had no idea how to respond to certain situations. We can't thank you enough for that either. So I'll ask the board and anybody else who wants to join us to just thanking you with a simple round of applause to recognize your dedication this year.
glad that everything turned out the way it did and that you could come in here tonight and actually, after all the things that you have gone through, and probably still have some nightmares over, that I can actually see smiles on your face. Because without you, we would have been in dire straits from the very beginning. And that kind of dedication, you know, is exemplified. And I think not only you, but our staff, our teachers, and our kids. And bless all of you, because without you, like I said, it would have been a mess. And, you know, there are heroes. And some of them are standing right here in front of us. So thank you so very, very, very much.
Thank you all. We really do appreciate it. We do. Anyone else? Tim?
Oh, yeah, I mean, the whole gamut, yeah, that goes to everybody.
Yeah.
Because without them,
Yeah.
you guys would be spinning around like a top in some places because you cover so many different buildings.
That's right.
Yeah.
They do really have our back.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. You have to trust them and they trust us.
Tim, did you have
I'll ask a
something?
question, but it's tough to follow. after Clark.
Follow that, yes, yes.
So were there one or two things that you guys did this year that you're going to continue to do next year? Like things you said, oh, you know, I wouldn't have done it had it been for COVID, but now that we've done it that way, it may be good to kind of continue on. Is there one or two things that come to mind?
I would say the one thing that we had talked about, the principals early on had said that we kind of need to cut down on unnecessary visits, just because, number one, if they're frequent flyers and they're just coming to visit, it puts them at risk if we do have a child in there that's sick. So I think we've learned a lot through that, and that's probably a good thing to keep continuing.
And the continued teamwork, I think, obviously this being my first year, but I don't think I could have worked with a better team going into a dream job for COVID. I think that definitely we've all been able to lean. I think they had a good team kind of starting out anyways, but this definitely has brought the relationship even closer.
Okay, good to know. Anyone else? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. Do an early childhood update.
As Michaela moves to the screen, board members, we've been kind of working through different levels throughout the school year, from high school to middle school, elementary. We've not heard from early childhood yet. Have an update of this year in general, but also looking ahead to next year as well. So Michaela's here tonight to kind of wrap up our focus on education throughout this year as well from a preschool perspective. So that was a quick transition screen-wise. Thank you, Michaela. You're up.
Hi, it's actually a great opportunity to finally meet all of you. Some of you I've met face-to-face but with masks on, and I feel like I'm learning to meet everyone all over again. So since starting here at Linn-Mar, I was told, welcome to the Linn-Mar family. When you come to Linn-Mar, you stay at Linn-Mar. And I can tell you that my transition here from my previous employment, all of that is true. So the amount of grace, I know that we had families say that you sent out surveys, you put into consideration every decision that you made, you were talking to the community, you were thinking about what those best options were for our family, staff, and students, and we really do appreciate that. Going into that, I think as Abby said, as a first year, walking into COVID, trying to get to know all of my new teammates, trying to get to know the department and the new leadership that I was working under, and all of those things that we had to navigate to ensure that we could provide a safe environment for our Little Lions and our ACBP program was a challenge, but was amazing because I feel like we came out on top. I feel like we really excelled and showed the community what we could do and how we could keep our students safe and still provide academically while following all of those restrictions and mitigations. So my presentation is pretty quick. I just wanted to go over what our enrollment numbers were and then give you guys time to ask questions. I know our enrollment numbers were down from this year. They started out really high. Families were gung-ho, ready to go as usual here at Linn-Mar, and then they just dwindled over the summer as things started to change. And I feel like we're starting to see an upturn in our enrollment, so feel free to ask questions after each slide if you have those. So currently, when we did our enrollment in February, what happened was what I expected to happen. So I was told it will be fast, it will be furious. People want those spots. It's like having the golden ticket at the chocolate factory. And boy, were they right. So like, we had one little glitch in the text system, and it was very interesting, but we rose above it. So at this point, our general education numbers, we just have 2 open spots, so 174 out of 176. A lot of those are fluctuating, so we have families that are taking the spots, then decide that they don't need them because they're needing that wraparound care, they're needing that full day, or they're having transportation issues that they didn't have when they first enrolled their child. We do have a lot of families too that enroll in multiple programs, and then pick one and then let us know that they're no longer interested. So I send out monthly emails saying, welcome, we're so glad you're part of the Linn-Mar family. Please let us know if you've had any changes so we can open those spots and offer those spots to families who are on the waiting list. We currently have 29 families on the waiting list. Most of our spots that we see fluctuating are at our Lynn Grove site. So what I thought was interesting when I did a breakdown of the numbers, so 69 out of 248 applicants are from wanted Bowman Woods. So their preferred location is Bowman Woods, don't want anything other than Bowman Woods. For Echo Hill was 38 out of 248. Wilkins was 37, and Lynn Grove was 37. Then out of the schools where we're not providing preschool, Indian Creek had 20, so that was their neighborhood school. That's where they would prefer a location. Westfield had 23, and Novak had 20. So just to give you guys a breakdown of where that desired area is. And so it was really interesting to see the Bowman Woods stack so high once I started getting those applications in. Then for our special education program, so reminding everybody that what is unique, especially for our little Lions, is we truly are inclusive. So our teachers are general education and special education teachers. So they carry a general education roster as well as a special education roster. Those students could be level 1, 2, or 3 on the special education arena. So currently what we have is 42 out of 80 designated spots. So each roster teacher could take 5 or 6 students with an IEP for their AM class, 5 or 6 for their PM class. A typical SPED roster in like a K4 is maybe 10, 12 students. So to give you some perspective of what they're carrying in addition to their gen ed components for their positions. We do anticipate those going up. So even this summer, we have 9 eligibility meetings. So we anticipate adding to that. For this year, we had 70 out of 80 slots for special education students on top of those gen ed rosters. Do you guys have any questions right now about where we stand for the upcoming school year, or maybe what we dealt with this year in regards to enrollment just for our little Lions and not our partner programs yet? Anyone? Okay, we're good. Then for our partner programs, they felt the hit too, but I think not as much because they were offering that full day incentive that a lot of our families were needing. And then we do have families that have that unique situation where they're able to stay home with their families. And thank goodness they were, and were able to have that choice during the pandemic. We did not offer during the pandemic virtual learning for our preschool level, but we did create a website so families could learn at home. And then we had a virtual teacher, Andy Posh, who did an amazing job taking over that as her virtual roster in ECVP started to dwindle. She really took over enhancing that website for our families, and we received a lot of great feedback about having that option if students couldn't enroll. So our hand-in-hand currently at our Barrington site is almost full, 39 out of 40. On 35th is 26 out of 40. So for them, it's just a lot of logistics, and a lot of it has to do with the location. And Collins Aerospace, actually, when I was able to talk to them, they are at 30 out of 40, and they're just really struggling, I think, with the location. So the fact that they're further out in the Cedar Rapids area, but they are Little Lions, Linn-Mar, I think that's what they're kind of battling right now. So we're going to get together and think of some ways to get those numbers into full capacity for them. Okay, and then our junior kindergarten enrollment. So we were really excited as a team to be able to have the opportunity to change the name from ECBP, so Early Childhood Blended Program, to junior kindergarten. A lot of that piece is we've had a lot of conversation, I'll get into this in a little bit, in our professional development about intentional alignment between Little Lions preschool, junior kindergarten, and kindergarten. And I think sometimes we're really missing that fluidity and that purposefulness of what we're doing here, how we tie it to the next step, how we tie it to the next step. And if our families do miss that junior kindergarten step, that's still fluid in between, which really can be tricky. So there's a bridge or there's not a bridge. And how do we get there and how do we make sure that every kiddo is truly ready to be successful when they enter a kindergarten classroom? So our total numbers screened when we did our screenings was 76. The total number that qualified was 70. So when I was looking at data from previous years, there were a lot more kiddos that didn't qualify. So what that tells me is we had the right kids come to that screening. We had the right families say, you know what, I'm really kind of questioning where my kiddo falls and I really want this information. In the previous year as well, they screened about 20 more kids. So less families came, and more of the families that came actually qualified for that program. And so we were happy to see those numbers. Currently, we have 64 out of 76, so we like to cap those classrooms at 19. So they have a teacher and an associate in those classrooms. Any questions about junior kindergarten enrollment?
Is that a new name for?
Yes, so junior kindergarten is the new name for ECBP, so the Early Childhood Blended, and we wanted to wait to roll this out for confusion for our current families that were enrolled to call it ECBP and honor that space. But then we did let our new families know that we were going to change that name and give them that purpose and that reason for that. And again, it's something where we can say this is a baby step to kindergarten. We were really missing that piece and families not really understanding what blended meant. And this really gives a little more perspective to that piece.
Yeah, I thought that was the case, and I didn't know if everybody knew that, and it makes it, I think it will help the families who are involved understand it better too. They won't remember all the letters they're supposed to remember.
Now we can just say JK.
What is it, the CBs,
Yes.
what is it?
Yes, and this was something where the teaching team in this program really had a say in this. They felt really passionate about it, exploring names of programs similar to it in our area. And this is what we landed on, and we got a lot of support from Shannon and Cabinet in making this change, but wanted to be intentional in how we roll that out so we limit confusion. So officially, ECBP is now junior kindergarten. Okay. And then I quickly just wanted to show you some of our growth data for the year. So this is our Little Lions Gen Ed 4-year-old classroom data. I will tell you that for our special education students, we did see growth between that fall and winter and then a plateau, understandably. A lot of those are just, do we have the resources, the time, the provisions, all of those things to provide for those kids on top of the pandemic and all of those things that those teachers are able to do in those classrooms. But this is our growth for our 4-year-olds. So you'll see these are percentage points, so I know that they're hard to read here. The biggest jump that we had was in our area of social, which at the beginning of the year, we spent a lot of time as a Little Lions team saying, what is our purpose? What's our vision? How are we all rowing in the right direction? And that team feels very passionately about the mental health and the social emotional capacity of our kiddos. We have a fine window between birth to 5 to really make sure that we set up that solid framework and a desire to want to learn and to enjoy school. And they show that they are able to provide that. And when you walk into those classrooms, I've been in a lot of classrooms in my time in early childhood, and I can tell you these are the calmest, most compassionate classrooms that I've ever been in an early childhood level. Their execution of conscious discipline, their execution of PBIS, and then following teaching strategies and being able to document everything that they have to do on top of that is truly amazing to be able to provide us this data. More than confident that if our kiddos are in the 90s for 4-year-olds in terms of falling in widely held expectations for math, literacy, cognition, language, physical, and social emotional capacities. And then this is our junior kindergarten data based on FAST. So I will tell you I am not a FAST professional, but I did speak with the instructional coach there, and she helped me break all of this down so I can make sure to articulate it clearly. So when they were given the FAST in the fall, winter, and spring, we wanted to have that comparison data. So again, similar to our special education students, where we have some kiddos that just turned 3, so technically 2. We have kiddos that are 3, and we have kiddos that are 4, and this year we had kiddos that were 5 having another year of Little Lions. So that's the spectrum that's happening in one classroom. So we also saw that plateau in the percentage in terms of 36 and 36 when you're jumping from spring to fall. But the average amount of growth for points for that early reading composite score is 32 for a kindergarten level classroom. So our kiddos that are in kindergarten, if you compare their fall to spring, the average is plus 32. Our kiddos averaged plus 16, which tells me again that we have the right kids in the right classroom. They are right where they should be entering that kindergarten year to be able to handle that academic pieces that are being thrown at them at the kindergarten level, and then we'll track them next year to see what their growth looks like next year. So being cognizant of that going into the year is much easier to pull that data than trying to pull that data a year in arrears. And when we did disaggregate it, they were telling me too that half of the program was like 16 average, and then they had another half that was ranging above 16. But then you have outliers of one. Some students might have a growth of 1, some might have a growth of 39, so that average also includes those outliers. Okay, and then my last slide just has to do with professional learning. So we really wanted to make sure that all of you knew what we were working on behind the scenes. So for Little Lions, we're given every Monday to work on our PLC systems, special education items such as IEP meetings, writing IEPs, specially designed instruction and progress monitoring, as well as the goal data that they need to put in for the state. And then we have the first Monday of the month for professional development. So this year we really wanted to focus on that conscious discipline review. They worked on conscious discipline last year, and they really felt like they weren't honing in on that implementation. And during a year of COVID, they wanted to make sure, again, that social emotional piece, that we were all using the same language, we were all implementing the same program pieces from conscious discipline, and not just taking the pieces that we wanted to use individually in our classroom for that cohesiveness. One of the biggest pieces that we worked on for both junior kindergarten and Little Lions was pulling in the AEA and working on identification of essential standards and benchmarks from Iowa Early Learning Standards and Iowa Core. Again, it has to do with that alignment piece. Are we really being intentional? Are we providing explicit instruction and creating common formative assessments around those for each grade level, and how do they align with what's been picked for each grade level? So during that time, we looked at kindergarten and what they chose. Then junior kindergarten looked at theirs. What's appropriate for junior kindergarten is not appropriate for kindergarten. It is slightly different, and then down to the Little Lions level. So we're excited for next year to actually be able to execute that, use our common formative assessments, and have really hearty conversations that involve data to make better instructional decisions. And then a creation of our viable curriculum. So another piece that we looked at is how much time are we spending in each area? How much time are we all providing literacy and math? And what does our morning time look like? And what components are we going to die on a hill about? And which ones are we going to say, okay, we really should look at this and we could refine this based on the data that we've seen. So this is all stuff that we've been working on this year that we're going to put into place next year. So we're excited to see how that aligns, and then providing other supports around prevent, teach, reinforce, and other things that we can implement in the classroom to help the wide range that we serve. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you for all you're doing. It's amazing. Anybody with a question? All right, as we proceed, Marion City Council was supposed to be covered by Rachel. She's not here, so we will move on to the Facilities Advisory Committee, and Britt and Clark and I are part of that committee, and of course Shannon's there. So would either one of you like to give impressions, or would you like to highlight first and we'll add? What do you think? Go for it. Have anything to say?
Everyone's pointing at me first? Okay.
Sure. I just looked your way. If you want me to look another way,
Clark,
I can.
Clark pointed at me too, so
Okay.
it was apparently unanimous.
Sorry.
No, I thought it was a really good meeting, and this was our second session, and if you remember, we talked about in our first session, at the end, we did Post-it notes and talked about, the different projects and what everyone on the committee thought, what their questions were, and that kind of thing. And OPN did a nice job of putting that into a readable list that made sense. And then they gave us, and you've got a copy of the questions that were asked in those Post-its and then what the answers are. And that really led to really great, at least my small group, had really good discussion about priorities and what that high school footprint looks like, the needs for another possible elementary and when that's going to happen. So I just think that there was a lot of really good conversation, and I feel really good about, there seems to be some consensus it's a large group, but there seemed to be some consensus building already, which I think is a really good sign.
It's a good
that-
sign for,
yeah.
we might be able to come together pretty well.
I guess that would be my summary is positive work, positive forward motion, somewhat of a consensus is building, and everyone seems to come in with really, everyone's open to whatever, to hear everyone's comments and really ask good questions. And so far, I think it's going really well.
And OPN assigned us groups, so there's about, 5, 6 in a group, something like that. So it was nice, they kind of did that ahead of time, and I imagine they had some plan in their deciding who was together, but it really did give some great discussion. What would you like to add?
I thought that, and you can imagine this, my group was the last one done. I get to talking and stuff. Thank you, Britt. And it's one of those things that, when you bring a conglomerate of people together from all different aspects, and you can focus on those the way that they did the first meeting and brought that in the second meeting, and then we had to put a 1, a 2, or a 3 with different forms on there. You finally get to the point where the cream's rising to the top, because the ones that got the number ones, that was the highest point in every single group, and so we're narrowing it down to where we can go. And the nice thing about it is everybody got along. There was no huge discrepancies, and to use Britt's words, it's easy to see how it's going to go forward. Now, it's going to be a little trickier as we get closer, but that's the way it's supposed to be. But a lot of intriguing ideas that sometimes you don't think of, outside the box, and yet somebody in the group has something of those. So there's definitely some very passionate people in certain areas.
Yes.
And but that's what we want, and we're getting a lot of information from people that have their kids at various levels in the district, as well as people that have graduated from Linn-Mar and see the future. And it's nice to walk away from those meetings with everything being positive, because what's positive is we're trying to do what's best for our students, and what's best for our teachers, what's best for our district and our public. And that's why it's exciting to go to those meetings.
I'll add in that there's a couple high school students that are on the committee.
Yes.
They just finished sophomore year, and their insights, because the biggest piece
They're
we're
there.
talking about is
Yeah.
that high school
Yeah.
footprint.
Yeah.
And so their insights, we as adults might suggest, this might be a good idea, or maybe we should do this. And they're like, well, from a student perspective, it would be really great if don't move the ninth graders out, or could this be this way, or having their perspective where they actually live in the results of these decisions every day, having their input, I think, is really valuable. So having those students there is great too.
I would agree. One of them was in my group, and she would come up with ideas, and one of the people would say, well, but you got to think, and at one point I just said, just let her talk. It's okay that she has an opinion. And I think it is important that we see from all points of view. So it was great. I'm enjoying it tremendously. If you can say you enjoy a meeting, and I do enjoy that meeting, totally.
Well, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
I know,
Because
I
we
am
sent
too.
OPN off with a whole bunch of homework, because
Yeah.
now they have a multitude of potential, can they solve these problems and these questions and bring us back with, well, this would work and this wouldn't. I'm excited for
To
what
hear
they
more.
come back with, because they're going to do a lot of homework over July.
I agree. Shannon, did you want to add something?
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is just kind of looking forward, kind of next steps, because I agree, our first 2 meetings have been very productive, very engaging and positive, like you said, as well. It's always interesting, too, with a new group of people we have roughly 40 people there with a variety of backgrounds. Some know each other, some don't, but they've really pulled together nicely, and people have been comfortable sharing their thoughts without Having to, like I think Vicki at OPN said several times, is a safe place for ideas, and people have really bought into that. So that's been great for conversation. So as you guys have mentioned, now we've got some initial priorities we've started to put together, and as Britt mentioned, we've given that to OPN as their homework, which is actually good timing because we are not meeting in July as a group. Take that summer month off, and we'll come back again August 11th is our next meeting. And that time OPN will have some concepts that we'll meet with them between now and then as far as some of the ideas that are coming from this group. What could that potentially look like? Just some big picture concepts. Bring it back to the group for some of the more conversation and dialogue too. So it's still early yet, but I do feel like our target of November, December to bring something back to the board for our recommendations, I think we're still on track for that now. We'll see if we can continue that pace, but I think so far we're off to a good start. And like Brett, I look forward to the next meeting as well. I think the good sign is we had everybody that came to the first meeting either told me they couldn't make it because of a conflict, or they came to the second meeting. I think that's always a good sign too, because if you have only half of them show up the second meeting, you kind of wonder what happened, what went wrong that first time. But no, really good start, and looking forward to it. And as Britt mentioned, we gave you handouts of the overall list of things that were on the stickies, and then some of the questions that came out of that with the basic answers too. Yep, it's the.
We talked about the cream rising. Is this the cream rising at the top?
Not quite. So that was what we gave the committee this time to work on, kind of the summary from the first meeting, and then the cream started to rise in the small group discussions during this meeting, which we do not have summarized yet to share. So that's kind of a meeting behind from where we were.
Are you just going to send that out in a weekly memo?
Yeah, we haven't scheduled our follow-up meeting with OPN yet, but once we do that and compile everything, then we'll follow back up with everybody either electronically or at our July meeting or both.
Okay, there's a couple items I always watch for.
Yes, well, and we know Tim.
I think there's a whole section on your particular.
Yes, there is, and yes,
You have two in high school, you're going to hear all about it.
I know it.
Well, and we're thinking about you, okay? Let's just put it that way. Okay, on to the next thing, legislative priorities, of which Shannon's going to go over. This is our first look at this, and as I looked over it at home to begin with, they don't number it like they've done in the past, so it's kind of hard to say, oh, go to number 10 or number whatever. There are some of the same things that we've talked about for many years, and they seem to still be there. But there's also some new things. So Shannon, maybe you can give us a guide on.
Yeah, I won't walk through each of these with you individually because it's our first read through this, and you may or may not have had a chance to do that since Friday's email. But we have until August 10th, I believe, is the deadline to submit our 4 priority resolutions to IASB like we normally do. So we'll come back to this again in July, have more conversation. I hope we can get agreement at that time. If not, we'll extend it into our August 9th meeting too if we need to as well. Like Sandra said, there is a little bit different layout to this one. It's organized a little bit differently in the past, but the content is pretty similar in some areas. And some other things pop up in here that I'm kind of wondering, well, how did that ever become even on the list of things to consider as well? So we won't go through all those right away, but as you look at this, I think the real other lens are careful, we need to be really thoughtful with is just knowing the tone of the last legislative session and how that shifted from where it started to where it ended. I'm anticipating this next session will probably just pick up where it left off maybe. So I think we need to be really thoughtful of, as we look at these priorities, with a little bit different focus now as well, based on where things ended this last session, and we'll pick right up again next winter is my assumption. So not that we can't stay with some of the same ones we have in the past, but I think we need to be pretty careful based on the recent climate out of Des Moines, I would say. So a couple of the things that are on here that may get your attention. I don't have a lot of answers for some of these because they're kind of odd ones to have listed on here, but one that I thought was kind of interesting that they did mention, I'm drawing a blank, of course I can't find it, was the one that talked about the budget guarantee.
Yeah, it's on
Please
page
note,
4.
At page 4, about halfway down, that is for schools that typically see decline enrollment. I think it's typically a 1% budget guarantee. So this would say let's raise that to 3%. We would not typically fall under that category. So that doesn't guarantee 3% new money every year. That's if you lose enrollment every year, it gives you that cushion for that first year of losing enrollment. So just note that that 3% isn't 3% SSA money every year.
What's that criteria, meaning you lose, just lose students for 1 year, or is it X amount of years?
That's a good question. I think it's the first year after that, but honestly, I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to it because until this year, we've never really been in that boat.
Right.
Is it just the first year, JT, or is it?
It's a 1 year.
It's a 1 year.
1 year catch, and then every
1
year
year,
you
then look
lose,
back.
it's the next year as well if you continue to decline, so.
As I was going through this, I said to Shannon, I go, what about this one? And when he shared with me, I said, let everyone know that, because it's one of those where we think, wow, if they're going to guarantee anything, of course we want that. But if it doesn't necessarily apply to Linn-Mar, then we need to move on to something else.
Yep.
I'm sorry, go ahead and
ahead.
finish.
Nope, go ahead.
Well, just one question that I had was, is that, there has been some talk on a federal level about, quote, free education for preschool, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, whatever that age group is. Any guidance on that yet, or is that strictly still just talk?
Yeah, right now, that's just a concept that's been floated out there. It's not a new policy coming down the pike. It is something that Michaela and I have talked about that we're going to want to watch the next couple of years, because that could have a major impact on our programming as well, potentially going forward, and also our facility planning as well. The impact for that would be substantial. So there's been a little bit of talk at the state level as well to beef up preschool. It'll be interesting, because I think state budget-wise, they're going to be in a pretty good spot next year. So some things like preschool may get more traction this next year than they typically have at the state level and federal too. Yep. So we'll come back to these again in July. So give you a chance to read through them, kind of start to mark your priorities, and then we'll compare notes again in July and see how close we are across the board. Like Sandra said, it'd be a little harder logistically just because things aren't laid out quite the same or numbered as easily. But if I remember in the past, we've been pretty close on a lot of our ideas.
And if we could come to agreement in July, fine. If we need to go on to August 10th, we will, but that's when we absolutely need to come up with it. And in between, we can have discussion if you need to contact someone or stay or whatever. We can do that.
Submit 4, right?
Up to 4. We could do 2 or 3.
More than 4, though.
Yeah, they've been kind of
I don't think
saying,
we've ever done only 4.
yeah, we tend to break the rules a little bit there. I
Yeah,
don't know if
I
they're going to
think-
allow us this next year on the format with it, by the sounds of it, but they've also told us in the past that too, so.
I think we've gone up to 6.
Yeah.
And they, I don't know if they just dropped the last 2 that we mentioned
like, oh,
off, and they just
thanks.
pretend we didn't put them up there. So we maybe need to be thoughtful in the organization of, of priorities, the way we put it in there. I don't know.
It kind of goes back to my first comment too of, I think we need to be really, because everything on here, well, almost everything on here would be things we'd like to see done.
Yeah.
But I think we really need to emphasize what are our real key priorities going into what could be an interesting session as well. So I think those are I think be to our benefit this time to try to be a little narrower and really emphasize those big items.
And it's impossible, of course, but we also want to look for the holes where we say this is a priority, and then they take that at the legislative level and go, oh, well, we can fix that for you, and they do the exact opposite of what we would hope that they would do to fix it. So perhaps looking at some of these from that lens as well and saying, this could be problematic if they go in the wrong direction. So maybe it's not a priority this coming session, since we kind of know what to expect in that we don't know what to expect.
Okay. Sounds good.
I'm glad you understood what I just said.
Sort of, kind of.
Nobody else
It's one of those sort of, kind of.
I think we know what they're going to do, but it could be a totally different session.
That's why that's your role on the board. Go right.
Yeah, go for it. Okay, we'll move on to cabinet update. Shannon?
Yeah, just a couple of quick highlights. I'll echo what the nurses said several times. Despite all the challenges this year, it was a very successful school year. Since the last time we met, we've had our final days with students, we've had our final days with staff, and just ended very positively across the board, I think, and really that says a lot about the people and the teamwork. You've heard those themes come through a lot lately, and it was good to hear that tonight as well from the nursing perspective, not just the classroom perspective as well. So lots of highlights in this crazy year, and kind of by coincidence, you heard nurses talk about the medical side of it and the safety side of it, and then you heard preschool talk so much academic and instructional side. And that was really a pretty good summary of our year in a nutshell, trying to do both as best we can throughout the year, and still keep things safe and still keep things moving academically. So I commend everybody for juggling both of those priority areas. So I think everybody feels as successful as the year was. It was time to wrap it up and get to summertime and give everybody some mental health break, and which is well needed and well earned by everybody as well. So we have a lot of work to do this summer. We've kicked into summer mode with some construction projects you'll start to see around the district. The most visible one's probably the Indian Creek Portable. You're starting to see that start to come apart to pieces a little bit. Some roof work happening throughout the district as well, some gym work, so things are already starting to take place because we have a lot of derecho repairs to do. And then also the final phase of Wilkins summer project that we split into two. About a year and a half ago, JT and his crew decided to split that into 2 summers instead of 1 because they knew a derecho was going to hit in August and we wouldn't quite wrap up that second phase. So better to be, maybe that wasn't the plan, but either way, it was to our benefit. So that's the other big project to finish up this year as well. So lots of things across the district you'll see. No new buildings this year, as you know, but lots of construction throughout the district. And then really the next phase for us becomes a lot of academically instructional. How do we get back to having that be the primary focus? We have 3 actually days of PLC work with administrators this week, spread out between Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday with different groups as well. Really trying to refresh some things and get that focus back as well. So I'm excited about that work. It's already scheduled to begin too. So at your desk or your spot, each of you have a book. That is a gift, not a homework assignment for this summer. Jamie Vollmer, some of you actually heard him at IASB a couple of years ago. He worked out a deal with some of the AEAs and Grant Wood, bought that book for every board member in the region to have as well. So that's your summertime reading if you choose to do so, not your homework book. But it's not a new book, but it's just some really good, interesting concepts in there, especially when you apply it to our current climate with everything. There's some interesting things in there about education from a systems view. So your summertime reading if you're interested.
And I would recommend the Blueberry Story, page 18.
Yeah, it's a good.
I just noticed that it's on the cover.
He's pretty honest about his, historically, he was not a fan of public education, and he talks about how he, his Blueberry Story is one of the examples of how he looked at things a little bit differently as well. So some summertime reading if you're interested. So that's the gift from Grantwood AEA for everybody. And then the last thing I'll mention, you heard one resignation, retirement recognition tonight. You'll see several more on our agenda for tonight as well. We do have a summary of all of our retirements listed in the cabinet update for everybody as well. So all the retirements are in one spot as they kind of trickled in this year as well. So just want to really recognize all of the staff that want to celebrate them, recognize their work and dedication and service to Linn-Mar, but then to retire in such a crazy year on top of it all. Want to make sure they get the recognition they deserve too. So, so listed several different spots for you, but if you want to see the full list, it is in the cabinet update in your packet of stuff too. So I think that's all I have.
Very nice.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay, we'll move on to unfinished business, and we have 601. We need a motion, and it'll be a roll call.
Move to approve the resolution proposing the refinancing of approximately $29 million school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds as presented.
Second.
Okay. Is there any questions before we vote?
The amount we save again?
Yeah, we're projected to save between $1.5 and $2 million with this. Obviously, we won't know that until we sell the bonds in July, but we're about halfway through this process. So after the board approves these resolutions tonight, there is a waiting period of about 14 days before we. I mean, if those bids come back, we will approve those.
Great. Okay, so we need to have a roll call, please.
Buckles.
Yes.
Eisenberg.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes.
Maury.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
And Weaver.
Yes.
Okay, it passes. On to 602. Go ahead.
Make a motion to approve the resolution fixing the date of sale, electronic bidding procedures, and official statement regarding the sale of approximately $29 million school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds as presented.
Is there a second? Okay, Britt, thank you. Once again, any other questions? If not, could you please do a roll call vote?
Eisenberg.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes.
Maury.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
Buckles.
Yes.
Okay, passes. Second reading on recommended policy.
Move to approve the second reading of the policy recommendations as presented.
Second.
Okay. Anyone want to speak to these? Any questions about them? I think most of us could read them and all that. Okay, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. Moving on to new business. We have lots of different motions here. First one about the ESSER fund transfer.
Make a motion to approve the resolution for the transfer of elementary and secondary school emergency relief ESSER funds for the general fund to the nutrition fund in the amount of $188,009.82 for allowable costs incurred due to the COVID-19 pandemic during the 2021 fiscal year.
Second.
Okay, Kara. Any
Or
more?
just move through them after that?
Yeah, any more explanation?
I can
Okay.
go over it real quick if you want me
Okay,
to.
and then we'll just go on through.
So the first two transfers are transferring ESSER funds from the general fund, first to the nutrition fund and then to the aquatics funds. As we've discussed previously a few different times, these particular enterprise funds were also impacted by the pandemic pretty significantly. We're not allowed to transfer based on revenue loss, but we are allowed to transfer for actual costs incurred because of the pandemic. So in regards to nutrition, because of the pandemic, we had folks that were had to take leave either because of quarantine or because of having actual COVID. There were substitute costs as well for that, but also the way we had to serve food changed significantly, so we had additional paper products costs because of that. And then just trying to maintain our staffing and whatnot, just continuity of services as well for these particular funds. So nutrition fund proposing the transfer amount of $188,000 and then the aquatics fund of just over $12,000.
Okay. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. 702.
I make a motion to approve the resolution for the transfer of elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds from the general fund to the aquatics fund. Is that that's not the one you just did, is it?
No.
In the amount of $12,620.08 for allowable costs incurred due to the COVID-19 pandemic during the 2021 fiscal year.
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. On to 703.
Make a motion to approve the resolution for the transfer of $16,681.65 from the general fund to the student activity fund to cover purchases which occurred between July 1st, 2020 and June 30th, 2021 for protective and safety equipment for extracurricular interscholastic contests or competitions.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes. Moving on to package increase for elementary.
Move to approve 2.37% total package increase for the Linn-Mar Educational Association staff for the 2021-2022 school year.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Motion to approve the 4.12% total package increase for Linn-Mar Secretarial and Educational Assistance Association staff for the 2021 school year.
Second.
Okay, clerk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. 706.
I make a motion to approve a 2.37 total package increase for the 21-22 school year for administrators, managers, and exempt staff.
Second.
Clerk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. 707.
I make a motion to approve a 2.36% total package increase for the 2021-22 school year for Superintendent Shannon Biscard.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 I'm going to do that again. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Kind of like, hello, where'd you guys go?
We're a little side discussion here. Sorry, Shannon.
Made me nervous for a minute.
I was going to say, what happened here? Oh my gosh. Okay, 708.
Make a motion to approve the district's student harassment brochures for the 21-22 school year as presented.
Second.
Okay. You decide on that one.
Can have it.
Any questions at all?
Mark's tried so hard.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, open enrollment.
Make a motion to approve the open enrollment request as presented.
Okay, second?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Barry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay. Okay, this is when you see all the many reassignments and retirements, and just want to wish everyone well that is retiring and moving on, and that they enjoy their retirement. And some of you may be teachers or nurses. I heard some of them are coming back to sub, and that often happens. Whatever the case might be, we wish you well. Is there anybody else who has something?
I just want to thank them also for all the time that they put in for our students, especially this last year. But we do hope that they come back and think and consider about substituting, since this year was a huge shortfall on that, and we need their expertise if they would so desire to come back and help us.
So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Okay, if I can get to it. All right, so we're over to board communications and calendar. Is there anyone who has a board communication? Okay, calendar. Would someone like to volunteer to do the June 17th Marion City Council?
I can.
Okay, thank you, Kara.
I noticed that, are they opening this
Yes,
up
they are
now?
now.
Because it says City Hall Ember.
Yeah, as of the 1st, I think they opened. We also have July 8th. Is there anyone who's interested in doing that?
I can do that.
Okay, Clark, thank you. And we've got one more listed on here, August 5th.
I can do that one.
Okay.
22nd?
I think July 22nd.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, July 22nd. We'll put you down for that, Tim.
I can do August 5th.
Well, awesome.
Oh, we're getting really.
Boy, we just zipped right through that,
Well,
everyone.
then I better take the 19.
Or we'll
That's
give it to
fine if
Rachel.
you want to. We'll put you down. So the 19th will be buried. Oh, my gosh.
And I'm sure everybody saw it as well, but Lon city manager is leaving, so the city council is going through the process of looking for a new city manager as well. So we've been in collaboration and communication with them as well, going forward with city council meetings.
Because they were
May have a
looking
little bit
for an
different look.
associate, right? Weren't they looking for an associate before?
Yeah, I think that
So now
position's
they've
been open
kinda
for a little
regrouped.
while.
Yeah.
So I think they're back to the drawing board a little bit to kind of figure out what their next steps will be. But- so those-
Are you on that committee then? or is it-
Not yet. We'll see where that goes.
Kind of on an outside talking.
Well, they don't have anything finally established yet, they're just having conversations, so, but they're getting organized.
All right. Is there anything else?
I would just say that the Finance Audit Committee will not meet in July. We typically don't.
Good. I'll be gone anyway.
People will be disappointed, but.
I'm so
Just
sad.
like we were this week,
Yeah.
or last week.
Okay. So
Also,
we're going to cross that out on July 8th then. Okay? Thank you. So, an adjournment?
A motion to adjourn the meeting at 6:17 PM.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.